Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review The Jesus Music. And this is a new music documentary from filmmakers, the Erwin brothers, who have made films like American Underdog that recently came out, I Can Only Imagine. And this is the kind of film where it's like, this is indeed a standard rock musical documentary. You have everybody sitting down for interviews and being asked about this situation. You intercut some footage, and it's pretty straightforward for an hour and 50 minutes, which generally I feel like a lot of these rock docs come in around like 90 minutes. So this one feels a little long. And I think one of the biggest issues is it has a very repetitive flow to it, where it's like, towards the beginning you're setting things up, and then it's like, let's talk about this artist. All the way around, then the back, new artist, and do the same thing over and over and over again. And after a while, it does become repetitive and a little bit like, is it going to shake it up a little bit? Is it going to keep the audience on its toes, or like we're just going to get fed this basic flow for the rest of the film? And it kind of felt that way. And that's, I think, the thing that, along with that repetitive flow, towards the beginning, it felt a little shaky in terms of what it was trying to set up. You know, a lot of the times a documentary starts off with like quick editing, quick like big pull quotes and stuff like that, trying to set up the big picture. This one I felt like it struggled to do that, and the opening like 5-10 minutes of this movie felt a little shaky to me, where it's just like, I don't know what kind of perspective this is going for at this moment, because it didn't feel like all that quick editing and choppy editing really brought, I guess, what you could call the thesis of this film together. Because, you know, documentaries are like essays. You're trying to put like, this is what this is about. Setting it up, you have an introductory paragraph with your thesis, and then the whole rest of the film you're building up that body, and then you tie it at the end with a conclusion. And I feel like the thesis statement of this movie was a little shaky towards the beginning of the film. But in the end, this is an informative and pretty eye-opening experience, because I don't know much about Christian, like contemporary Christian music. As they pointed out, that's how we go about talking about it at this point. And like Creed I also wasn't aware that Skillet was also contemporary Christian music. So like, I guess I listened to Skillet and I listened to Creed, but I don't think they wanted to talk about Creed. But at this point, it's like, I'm not really too familiar. Like, I've seen some of these other films from the Erwin brothers, who I can tell have a strong connection with music, because a lot of their films focus on Christian musicians. And this was pretty informative. I didn't realize, like, towards the end of the 80s, one of the biggest areas of music industry was contemporary Christian music. Thought it was like dying hair metal bands, and which is interesting because Stryper in this film is a Christian rock band, and they're a hair metal band just with Christian music. And they had the whole like Christian Woodstock, and they had Billy Graham, and to be perfectly honest, it kind of just seemed like a giant country concert. But I would see Johnny Cash singing some gospel and stuff like that. Like, that's the interesting thing too, because if you really think about like country music, like old country music, and from like decades ago, and folk music, it does have a lot of like gospel in it. A lot of soul had a lot of gospel in it. It just didn't feel like it was beating you over the head with it. And I feel like that's a lot of things where it's like, I'm a Christian rock band. And it's just like, or you could just play faith-based music and people will just enjoy it because they like your music. And that's an interesting dynamic that I felt watching this film, and really thinking about like branding it contemporary Christian music versus, you know, just playing songs and creating music that do speak to that. But, you know, music's all about branding and finding your market. And there's some solid emotional beats, honestly, in this film. Some of the tragic things of, like, the leader of Stryper talking about how this one preacher made such an impact on his family. And then as Stryper became a thing, this same preacher denounced them on national television, and it's just like, that sucks. And those emotional beats really grab me because, like, that's pretty tragic. And it's such a tough thing, and this film does take on some interesting dynamics in terms of these bands are using rock music to convey the word of the Lord. And it's just like, so many people who are so obsessed with, like, rock music is the devil, don't disconnect, like, just because you're using that music doesn't mean that the message isn't religious. And that brings up one of the most complex and interesting dynamics of the film. I do feel like there's moments where this feels a little bit full of itself. Like, at one point they were talking about, like, nothing was more punk than, like, being with Jesus, and it's just like, is it though? And it's just like, I'm pretty sure you're not the Sex Pistols or the Ramones. Yeah. And that's an interesting thing, and, like, obviously this documentary is very much like, we love Christian music and about Christian music, so it's going to be extremely biased in that way. But, you know, this is a solid documentary effort that I enjoyed. I thought I got a decent amount out of it. I am also somebody who loves music and music docs a lot, so, like, this was kind of right up my alley. I don't know how others would feel if, like, music isn't their biggest thing and they're just watching this film and just kind of getting preached at for the whole time, because, like, to be honest, I'm an agnostic at this point in my life. I'm a confirmed Roman Catholic, so, like, there wasn't any rock music in my church. There wasn't, like, a band with guitars and stuff like that. You had organ up in the back and basically doing religious chants to organ music. But, you know, that's Catholicism. But it's interesting watching this film and seeing this perspective, because I felt like I gained a lot by taking the time to listen to this perspective and seeing it from a different standpoint. And it gives me more respect for Christian rock music, because, like, all I can think of is, like, South Park making fun of it, King of the Hill, where Hank Hill is just like, huh, you're not making Jesus better, you're just making rock music worse. And, like, that kind of stuff like that. So I did appreciate the Jesus music. I think this was a solid documentary, and I think it's worth checking out. So it's on Amazon right now. It's how I watched it. Well, those are my thoughts on the Jesus music. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.